What is up, humans and mutants alike? My name is Kyle. We are going back through our old catalog and re uploading them onto YouTube in what we are calling Podcast of X Classics. So enjoy. What is up? My name is Kyle. I'm with Danny, and we're here. We have made it. Danny, we have made it. Are you ready?
The cornerstone, or the centerpiece, if you will, to the great run we have begun with Hickman and what he's been doing with the X-Men. I am 100% ready. This is the final masterpiece to his symphony he's written here.
Indeed. His origin story, if you will. Now, last issue we talked about House of X, issue number 6. We learned a little bit about the council and the laws that they created. We learned about what their judgment is on Sabretooth. We saw them get down and party hard.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Orgies and drinking were to be had.
Yes, a little bit of yub-nub here, a little yub-nub there.
The Empire was toppled. It's correct.
But it was fun times. It was fun times. And we're seeing, finally, the formation of Charles's plan played out.
This is like I said, the dominoes are now lined up, and they're now being knocked over.
Let's knock them over.
Let's knock them right over.
Yes. All right, so let's get into it. Let's not waste a moment.
Would you condemn the whole world just to keep our love?
You bet I would. Why would I care about anything else?
We start because this is X-Men. Powers of 10. We start at X-Men Year 1. Charles, dapper looking, in his 3-piece suit, walking, and we turn
back to the basics.
Back to the basics. And we return to where we left off at the beginning of this series. The first few pages are nothing but a more or less what we saw from the first 3 pages, right? It's the same thing.
Everything's brought full circle in a sense that, like how they did with what went down with Sabretooth and House, they're now bringing it full circle with what went down previously in the beginning of Powers. So now you're seeing the character story that was told as almost like you could say a miniseries tangent is now that conversation is being finished.
Exactly.
Being concluded here in the final Powers.
It started in Powers of X issue number 1.
Correct.
And we are now seeing conclusion. Now, just to bring you up to speed, remember Charles, a spry, dapper-looking young gentleman at a fair, at like a World's Fair, and Moira comes up and says hello to him, or good afternoon. While he's at the bench, and we get some banter. Are you enjoying the fair? Seems like everyone. It seems like the kind of thing I should enjoy, and yet I look around, and all of these people know it's just a show for those who need a distraction.
Jeez. It's that God complex. He's starting to bring it out. He's got to ease up on it. He's going to lose her.
Yeah.
She's just one quick turn away from genocide right here, but I think she's going to tough it out. She doesn't want to get burnt alive again.
Yes, exactly. So she sits, and they continue talking. And can we just talk and note the panel at the bottom right corner of the page? Look at Charles's eyes. Look at those eyes.
Look at those, the joy, the unadulterated just egotism in that. Are you talking about the smile or the really tiny beady eyes?
No, I'm talking about the really tiny beady eyes.
I dig the smile.
Eyes. The smile is great though.
Well, that's like the smile and the eye reaction kind of reminds me of like a meme you would see on like a forum somewhere, like that kind of response. Like I could see that getting memed at some point, but the tiny eyes are so. Now that you mention it, they're so. What are they supposed to? I don't know if this was a rush job at the last moment here, or if it's supposed to imply like a lack of emotion. Like if it's trying to imply a lack of emotion, kudos. Did RB Sylvia did way too good because Charles looks like he's just like, I got nothing, baby. I'm fucking zero right now. I have no emotion. I'm the singularity. Look at these eyes.
Yes, everything goes through me.
And then you cut to the next panel, and he's just like full of just all the subtext in his facial feature. Maybe that's what they meant to do. They wanted something that contrasted his points of reaction, of super bland seriousness to snide, cavalier, arrogance. Oh, I really like what they did with Charles throughout Powers. He played a lot of characters. He played a lot of personalities. Mm-hmm. He played a lot of points of view through his different timelines and how he was reiterated. But what they eventually worked out in the end is something that it feels very alien to this. And that's a great writing trick that Hickman chose to develop a character like Charles. He did it similar in Fantastic Four when he was developing Franklin. So how you use the older Franklin and the time travel and all that stuff. You kind of feel like you could bring that Charles from the future and it would be a similar crossing of paths. This Charles and then the one at the end of Powers of X.
Right.
Oh, it's a good start.
And this is the part that we don't see from the first issues of Powers, is that where she elaborates into the story. She says, I walked past a fortune teller selling his wares, and she kind of shows what her fortune was. And it shows the magician, the tower, and the devil, which we know as characters that we've seen play out in X-Men Year 100, which is Rasputin and the other one I always forget the name of.
Nightcrawler, but not Nightcrawler?
Nightcrawler, but not Crawler. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I forget him too, but he pretty much was Nightcrawler. The way they portrayed his character, and he was the philosophical moral compass to that group as well. They even called him the preacher at some point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was them alluding to the future that kind of plays out with these characters, and she kind of breaks it down in a weird way of check this out. And I like how that she's getting into it quick because Charles is still at that point of he's just getting into the shallow part of the pool. He's like, what do you mean? What are you going on about here?
Yeah, he just dipped his toe.
What are you talking about, Moira? What you talking about, Moira?
Yeah, and then she's just like, "Yo, I saw you looking at the end of it," referring to that she's still doing the tarot reading. She says, "I looked at you at the far end," and he's like, "What did you see?" She's like, "A strong man," and referring to him being just teasing a future that he has or could have, and we're brought to the place we saw in issue number 1 of Powers, and she talks about a better world, a better place, and Charles says a dream, and then Moira hits you with that line that you got from the first issue. Well, here's the thing, Charles, it's not a dream if it's real.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the deep throwback too. That's the best line that she had from the beginning to get him hooked, to reel him in. Was that when she dropped that, you could tell right away he was piqued. He was just his interest was completely on her lap, and she could do anything with it at that point. She had him hook, line, and sinker. She's got so much practice at playing Charles at this point. It's almost like textbook to her.
Yes, and then again, just like Powers 1, we get the "Who are you?" and she says, read my mind. And he does. And this is what we see from this experience, which is where we didn't see in issue number 1. We cut to X-Men Year 1000, The Preserve. Now, this just looks like a wildlife habitat, a bunch of weird, evolved animals everywhere. And we see the librarian. Now, the librarian, last we left off, is she was pondering. The elders ascended. They have ascended, and they were contemplating like what happens when we ascend. If we biologically ascend, are we really ascending, or is it our we're and it leads into a bigger philosophical question about the consciousness. And now we see the librarian in this preserve with these animals, as though she's taking care of them, observing them. Kind of disappointed because she's just like she's sighing, and then some beast comes and tries to attack. And she's like, nah, man, don't you understand how evolved I am? I'm so superior to you in every way, shape, or form. And what we learn is that this person that attacked the librarian is none other than Wolverine.
The twist.
The twist! Dun dun dun. And it's like, whoa, Wolverine's been alive this whole time. He's been hanging out since for all this time. Yeah.
He has that nice little like salt and pepper look that they gave like Superman when he was in Batman Beyond. Remember when they had that little throwback to how Superman was still alive? And he had just that. That's what this reminded me of, like the future get up with like the little bit of the white light outline of in the hair. I was like, hey, this kind of reminds me of like if Wolverine had been alive too long and what he would still kind of look like. Is he really? He shouldn't age that fast. I mean, at the rate that he has been aging so far in the current timeline, I mean, you stretch that out to 100 years, it'd be fine. Like,
sure.
He's already done that. Like he's already been alive for 100 years. That's nothing for Wolverine.
Not a problem.
Yeah, so it makes sense that he would look like in some way, shape, or form a little more just slightly grizzled and just a few, white streaks. That's it. He's starting to show his age just a tiny bit. But look at the design of this like habitat that they're in. Like they're in this really dystopian kind of zoo. It kind of reminds me of like what you would see in like the display inside a ship for like Brainiac when he's like going around to collect something, and like has like all the different animals on display, like the habitats that he makes up. This is what it felt like. Since the humans essentially are like some ascended form of cybernetics and mutations, man-made mutations at that point. But since there's something kind of like that, it feels like we're all that kind of Brainiac villain character in the future. Like that's what we evolve into, is a super intelligent, advanced creature that just turns everything into a zoo. So is that the danger of becoming like super smart? And that's what super intelligence brings us, is that do we just start collecting things that are far less superior to us?
Yeah, I guess so. We just start categorizing and organizing and collecting things.
Oh man, if you go back to me in the 90s and tell me that like, hey, that Wolverine toy is pretty cool, but check out this future, dude. Like they got Wolverine in a zoo, like real Wolverine. Suck it, collector. I got actual Wolverine. Oh man, the librarian is an interesting character because you almost feel like the humanity side of it is still there, but it's it's enshrouded in all this weird technological like underbiting that just kind of warps it into something very strange and alien. But awesome colors. Reminds me of like Steve Ditko. You remember like the older Doctor Strange comics, like the colors they use with the lighting in the background.
That's cool. I like the very bright colors with the cool in the background, and then the
trees.
Super cool colors in the foreground, which is cool.
Elephants made it, so all the people worried about elephants, they make it.
They look like a evolved hybrid elephant, though, like an alien elephant almost.
Yeah. I almost say it looks like an elephant pushed further down its evolutionary chain. Like it looks like some of its features just got kind of tighter, and maybe they're implying its brain got bigger. I mean, elephants are crazy smart, so like, what if they're like super smart? Oh, that'd be scary. They're organized. Dear God. Oh man. But now you're transitioning to this interesting part where you get the confrontation between Wolverine and the librarian, and that's when the story comes to its like final point. We get left
Yes.
off from the narration into the actual just back and forth between the characters, because the librarian subtext has all been narration for the story at this for the most part.
Yeah.
Now it's like a direct dialogue between like Wolverine and the librarian, which is cool because now you're getting the actual characters in real time.
Yeah. And essentially Wolverine's just like, I want to be free, yo. And the librarian's like, well, do you even understand the concept of free? You've been in here most of your besides you. I think she specifically says, or he. It's what is the librarian?
That's a good question. It's very androgynous. I think the librarian's meant to be very androgynous because, I mean, it's more machine than person,
Right.
really, at this point. So, like, sexual organs, I don't even think really come into play.
Yeah, I think that's long past at this
We will
point.
say they are the librarian.
Yes.
As best as we can go. But yeah, it's a weird thing to kind of break down to Wolverine, where it's like, you get it, like you've been around for way longer than any of these people, Wolverine. Like the concept of freedom and free will makes sense to you, but to them that have been raised in captivity, the concept of a free world, the concept of your own actions being able to be wielded by one's own self is almost alien to the rest of these mutants, because they're just animals kept in a habitat, like a nature preserve in its most astronomical spatial type form, but still nonetheless in its purest form, a nature preserve. That's all this is. That's like asking, like, a desert, rabbit, like, does it know it's in a nature preserve? Is it okay with it? Does it have any problem, or is this the world that it's used to living in? And that's the argument that you get back and forth between Wolverine, and is an interesting and very meta argument, because you could take this argument and turn it outwards into the rest of the world and say, like, how many people out there are living and working in their own type of nature preserve? How many people are animals in a zoo and don't realize it?
Right.
Yeah, and it's Wolverine is one of the people who can counter that and explain how there's a contrast, because there are people who exist in a different, maybe in the same paradigm, but a different juxtaposition to what everyone else is doing, and that allows them to know that there's more to this. But it's still a terminology. It's still conjecture backed by objectivity, because like the words, the nomenclature that goes to it. What does a freedom and free will mean? I just like that Wolverine is a very classic embodiment of all these like historical concepts. Because I mean, he comes out and says, like, I've been teaching them things about revolutionary ideals, and like he's been spitting stuff their way. But like, what is he telling them? Is he like telling them old World War II stories, or like when he fought in Vietnam, or like weird crazy stuff? Like, I picture that's what Wolverine just does at night. Like he's all these like weird like eco-habitatable mutants that are like practically like grazing animals, or just like listening to Wolverine tell like stories about WW2.
Right.
Well, don't get me started on the Jerry's.
Like, I'm just trying to eat my food. I don't even know what you're talking about. I can't even see what you're talking about. He's just like, let me tell you the time I killed Jean.
I want to hear what Wolverine's explanation would be for Canada, because they're gonna be like, well, so where do you come from? Like, and he's like, well, I came from Canada. Like, they're gonna ask him in detail, like, well, what was Canada? And just hearing Wolverine explain how Canada functioned, and then their secret governments, and like, what was it, Division H, and all that. Like, that's so funny to hear from his perspective.
Oh yeah, they'll be like, what?
And then they put me in a cage, and then eventually filled me with the adamantium stuff. It's crazy stuff, man.
But Wolverine's just all like, yo, you know English. Why do you know English? This is such an old language. Why would you speak? Why do you need to know English just to speak to me? And he's all, the librarian's like, I'm not here for you. I'm here for her. And this is where we find out that Moira is still alive, and Moira is in this habitat.
She's one of the farm animals.
She's a farm animal.
Yeah, she's one of the exhibits, if you will. But this was the twist within the twist. Like, Wolverine was already a cool one, and you're like, okay. But then Moira comes along, and you're like, oh. So what is this then? Like, what life is this? Because we know that in the one future with Apocalypse, Wolverine murked Moira. So
yeah,
this can't be that. So you start to
Exactly.
wonder, like, which life is this then?
Exactly. And essentially, she's been eavesdropping, and the librarian's telling her specifically that the phalanx is here for ascension, and ascension will occur tomorrow. And what this consists of is absorbing the entirety of post-human society. Does it absorb the Earth too, or just the people on the
Well,
Earth?
I
All
imagine
living things on the Earth?
the phalanx seems to break down all material via organic and inorganic. It seems to fuse. I think some types of material take longer, but at some point, eventually, it just consumes everything and brings it within to itself. So I imagine the whole planet just be gone, and it'll become one of those mass like breakdowns of the different types of planetary systems versus the hive minds, and all those will start to develop from which planet is chosen. So there's that, but I mean, there's going to be nothing left of any of these people or anything. The habitat's
Right.
gone. I mean, the
Nothing.
librarian's saying that the end is nigh. Like, that's it. It's literally like, this is it. It's been a fun ride. I think the librarian, in the sense, even though the emotion and like any of that tender subtext is removed from a character like this, I still feel that the librarian is whimsical in some way about the end being so abrupt. I could get it from what they were describing in the last issue of how the individual and the self being absorbed into the greater phalanx has its philosophical quandaries, but still it seems like at this point the librarian's enjoying the last bit of nature. I mean, look at him holding that flower, like just kind of talking, and the transition that comes up in a little bit. I mean, we'll talk about that when it happens, but what Wolverine does, it seemed kind of strange, but I'll wait to see your take on it. But yeah,
It was
going from here,
strange.
it
Yeah. Okay. So moving forward, the librarian just keeps talking. Specifically, says that the phalanx will, after absorbing Earth, make its way back to the nearest black hole, and it uploads all of the information to the next dominion.
So
I
that means
guess,
everything's gone then. Yeah. So
yeah,
all that stuff they absorb just
all
takes it
gone.
and
Yeah,
collapses instantly. They're like, we get our own black hole.
yeah, and Moira finds out that the world's ending tomorrow, and we're all gonna die. And yeah, they're just like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Um,
Yeah, it's like, why is this going to go down this way? Why are you
so
telling us?
okay, are you like this part was weird because it feels like they're repeating themselves. They're all like, this is gonna happen. The phalanx is gonna come and they're gonna be absorbed, and then literally there's like a moment where like gasp. Why is this happening? And then it seemed like she's just repeated herself. She's just like, well, the Dominion is gonna, or the phalanx is gonna come, and then it's gonna upload itself to the thing. And I'm like, is this just repeating itself, or?
Kind of, but in a sense where she's breaking down the concepts of how it functions. So
But
first
yeah,
she hit them straightforward with like, well, the phalanx is going to guess we're going to be absorbed and we'll become one with that. But then like when they're like, what do you mean? Why is this happening? And then they kind of go into a discussion about like, well, this all doesn't really matter anymore because we're going to get broken down into something greater. I'm going to be a part of a god being, but it's like a manufactured technological deity. But that's what's really going to happen. And I just feel like Wolverine's like, so why is this happening?
yeah.
His response to it is a very Wolverine response, but it's also like kind of like, you're missing the big picture. That's why the librarian is just here chit-chatting, because there's not really much Wolverine himself directly can do to stop the ascension, but there are things, with Moira, obviously. But that's coming up soon enough.
Yes, and yeah, he's not like Wolverine's not really having it at all. Oh, okay. So even Moira says let him finish. So I guess it's a guy, the librarian.
Oh yeah, that's very possible. Yep, there you go.
There you go, people. No gender hybridity here. All gender normative. Deal with it. We still, yeah, the straight people win again in 1,000 years. Yes.
Those binary sets bitches, how can? Oh jeez. Oh man, I mean, look at these characters and how they're portrayed. Like it's so dystopian and like Orwellian in a way that it's almost hard to tell. They don't have facial features. They're all hairless. They're all pretty much detailless on their face. They're like mannequins, almost blue robot mannequin people.
Yeah.
That's what really speaks from the way they appear. But I definitely think that Moira is a little shocked by all of this a little too much because like she's seen how the robots have eventually evolved and adapt,
Hmm.
and I feel that
She should know this.
yeah, like she's been down kind of this similar road, and I feel like the librarian breaks it down really well. Like they say essentially, oh look, well you've given us enough time, like with the technology that we developed, we just had to keep jumping and leaping and striding, and then we eventually learned how to genetically engineer ourselves, and then the technology had a positive feedback loop that built off of our genetic engineering. So anytime we'd have leaps in genetic engineering, we'd have leaps in technology, and eventually we just plateaued at a point. And now it's like mutants are kind of played out and they're, not that crazy because we could make whatever we want in our essentially the evolution of what Charles is doing. Like the fucking humans, the human cyborg self mutated hybrid, like base human, has figured out how to do on their own. Like, so Krakoa is the first of its own, like of it in the main Marvel timeline of a device that can generate and create mutants, like regenerate them. Besides from whatever Sinister was doing in the background, but Krakoa is like the first mass-produced one that's set to actually like work like as a factory nonstop. In this timeline, in the future, the humans or the base humans, if you want to refer to them, to be simpler, they have that down in spades. Like that's why they all have superpowers and they can all do whatever. Like the librarian has like telekinesis, and one
Yeah.
of the panels you see one of them is like
She just
lifting
stops it.
yeah, like they're like smashing an atom in front of them, like splitting an atom into a ray and like lifting a satellite.
Yeah, she just stops Wolverine as he attacks too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So the librarian's just kind of pondering and is like, "Do I let you die, and maybe in your next life you could figure this out and not allow us to become a part of this greater existence, or do I send you away and find out for myself?" And the librarian asks and wants Moira to convince her of this. And Wolverine's just like, well, I'm just going to start my revolution right now. This post, yeah, stop this post humanity nonsense.
I like how like complaining about it he is too. He's like, well, maybe then I'll just get a jump on my revolution then.
Yeah.
Sorry, gosh, you want to be like that? Cards on the table, revolution go. And he sure does. His one man revolution, it worked pretty well.
Yeah. And we see the librarian kind of scoff at them. He says, it's really sad. The idea that you thought of yourself as an evolutionary inevitability. And they're like, we are, bitch. We are. And the librarian's just like, look at this. This is a cage. You're in a cage. You don't exist within the realm of what is evolved in this state at the moment. And she specific or he, I keep saying she. He specifically says mutants are an evolutionary response to an environment. You are naturally occurring, the next step in human evolution, but what is beholden to your environment, and goes on to talk about how humans and biology and technology merged, and what makes these people, what makes these supermen, if you will, and how you created chaos, destruction, brought sentinels, brought Nimrods into this world. And
Yeah, it was really not any kind of crazy revelation that this was the outcome to happen. I mean, she broke it down, or he broke it down pretty easily. They laid it out in a way where you're like, look, here's the path that we're going down with the Sentinels. Here's the path that we're going down with all the Super Sentinels and the Nimrods.
Mhm.
Like, what did you expect to be the outcome after any of that. I like that this whole like Moira being shocked was kind of less shocking than it was more amusing to the librarian, because they were just like, okay, well, you seem kind of dumb. That was your bad. I almost feel like I have to let you guys have a do-over possibly, because you fucked this one up pretty royally. Like, we're all just gonna turn him a Sheen hive mind god, and it's kind of a bittersweet ending. I really like this flower. Maybe we should take another swing at it. But seriously, you mutants are not that special. Just want to remind you. Oh man, it was like that. The mutants to the librarian almost seemed like that like wounded animal that you get, like the one that has like 3 legs, like,
On
and
those
you're just
commercials.
yeah, you're just like, I'll take care of you, but you were hanging on there by a thread, buddy.
But yeah, Moira is very flabbergasted, which is a little weird. Um, and what do you think? Because I assume the librarian reads minds, is psychic, has all these evolutionary uh, powers, and just knows that Moira has the ability to resurrect. Do you think he kept her around for that reason?
Well, they've been studying them. Like he broke down in the beginning. He said the whole point for having these habitats is to study and spy and I guess you could say create a I guess journal of the information about the habitants of it. The mutants are the habitants. They're the animals that are in this habitat that they're studying, and that was like his nonchalant way of saying like, "Oh, I know everything about you. Like, we study you all the time. You're always being watched." And
Right.
so they have probably a good idea of the concept of the reincarnation and how it works to what they've said, but I think that there's a little bit of aura of mystery, and that's what brings the librarian to this stance. And what happens here is that maybe the librarian doesn't 100% know for sure if it'll work, but wants to give it a shot anyways, because
Right.
the facts line up enough from what they've heard and what she's explained and how she knows things. Like, she knows things that no one should have known about, like the Sentinels and how they developed. And I can imagine them studying her. They would quickly figure out, oh yeah, she's definitely telling the truth about her alternate timeline. So there's something here, and that's where the librarian's probably like, all right, let's fucking gamble it. I'm either going to be this, or I'll be one giant drop of ones and zeros in an infinite sea of ones and zeros.
Yeah, it's interesting. Um, so, uh, the librarian goes on and talks about kind of dissing, kind of shit talking the mutants about how puny and insignificant they are, and how they were just a product of their environment at the time, uh, and talking about how they're never going to be gods. And what does Wolverine do in this moment as she's talking?
Well, Wolverine decides to begin that revolution he was talking about. He's like, all right, I said I was going to start my revolution. Let's get this going. And he gets some schnick action going, and just right through the librarian. Claws and all, takes him down to the ground, and pretty much that's it. The librarian's dead. The librarian stopped Wolverine earlier with telekinesis, and the librarian could do any countermeasure possible, but the librarian just got picked off by Wolverine with ease. So that implies to me that the librarian wanted to die, and that's the significance of this. It doesn't seem like Wolverine got that from this, and I almost feel like, okay, then that's what they're doing with Wolverine. They're making him all idealism and no rationality. Like, he's all momentum, but no true, like, big picture view of what's happening here. Because it seems like Moira's unaware of a lot of stuff too, so they're like woefully unprepared in this timeline.
Right. What is her sixth life?
Yeah,
Right.
that's the
So
twist here.
yeah, this is before she went with Apocalypse. This is before Magneto, right? Because 4 and 5 are the only was with Charles.
8, I believe, was Magneto, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, or at least Apocalypse in one of those. I think the Apocalypse one came after Magneto, or there was one right before it.
It's definitely after 6, that's for sure.
Yeah, those those timelines get kind of confusing sometimes because they're just so many. They jump around. I like the infograph they use with it too, where it's just like a giant maze that loops around itself and then like kind of stretches it out over time.
Right.
but but yeah, there's still a lot of stuff she hasn't learned and a lot of concepts she hasn't picked up on.
Exactly. Still halfway through all her lives that we know so far. So she's still young in the game, I guess.
Yeah, she's still wide-eyed and revolutionary. She's like, look, we took this to 1,000 years. Way to go, 6 timeline. Woo!
Ooh, 6 timeline went hard, man.
Take us home, Wolverine. Play your greatest hits.
Play your greatest hits. But before Wolverine plays those greatest hits, I just wanted to go back to you did confirm that. Yeah, I thought that too, that the librarian just seemed to like, well, I don't want to ascend. I'm gonna go to this guy who seems kind of crazy and let them know, and he's probably gonna stab me in the face. Because the first time I read that, I'm like, well, this is stupid writing. You're just gonna like be all like, haha, I have countermeasures to everything because I'm an evolved human too. Oh, I just got stabbed in the face.
Yeah, that was the trick behind it. That was the twist. Is that, oh no, I wanted to get stabbed in the face because I'm just done here. I don't want to ascend. Maybe you can make a better life than this because this is just eh.
Yeah.
The library was interesting. It was a very interesting evolution of like the human intellect, like the existentialism or almost transcendentalism, like comboed into it. You picture the idea of the self and the idea of true happiness versus like true intelligence. I mean, if ignorance is bliss, then maybe that's the core motivation of what the librarian was doing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what led to the librarian just like, all right. Like the Obi-Wan situation, where it's like, just strike me down. Like, doesn't matter. There's more going on here, and then my physical and my current existence can really lend to me. So let's roll those dice again.
Yeah. So, with that said, Wolverine does what he does best. He stabs Moira right in the abdomen. Yet again, another woman, another abdomen, another womb. Like, go for the heart or the head. But no, here he is. Here he is, just making it difficult on people.
It's his greatest hits, man. He was playing it. He was like, you guys want to hear a classic? It's a schnick to the abdomen.
Right.
You remember this, right? You remember that? Oh.
Man.
It's like, I remember this. This sucked.
This is not my jam at all.
Damn it, Wolverine. That'd be the first thing she should bring up to him when she sees him again. In the other timeline, she's like, I swear to God, if something goes wrong in this timeline and you have to kill me and you stab me in the fucking abdomen again, I'm find a way in the next timeline to take you. I got all the tries I want, buddy.
But yeah, she gets stabbed, she dies, and so ends the sixth life of Moira. And we find out this is in the sixth life. This is it. This has been the sixth life the whole time.
This was the twist, the big like, oh, you know what? This weird future that we've been building up that you think that we're kind of Tarantino-ing, like early on, we're giving you like tidbits of the actual outcome that's going to play off. No, that's just a preliminary round. That's just a fake out, a Hickman fake out. He's got some of those every now and then. They're always building up to something, and then you're like, no, there's a bigger story going on, and here it is. That was just a fun part. Did you guys like that? You like that little tangent? You enjoyed that? All right, now back to the crazy thing I'm trying to do.
Yeah, now back to the show.
Yeah. Oh man, I liked, probably year 6 or life 6, and then I liked what was the one with Apocalypse that was like life.
Yeah, that was 8.
Yeah, life 8. Like that was a good one.
That was my favorite, the Apocalypse one for sure.
Oh man.
And then on the next page, we're shown Homo Novissima. Now, the librarian touched on this a little bit too. Homo Novissima is essentially the last step in human Earth evolution, I guess you could say, earthly evolution before it gets ascended.
Yeah.
So this is as far as humans made it, more or less. This is the outcome. This is the end from Homo, from that little stupid amoeba that walked up on the stupid water onto the beach, all the way up to this thing that was ascended to the light, to the what are those things called? I
To
can't think
the
of Sentinel. No, Phalanx. There we go.
After
Phalanx.
the phalanx, to the very end of the food chain. Yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, that was I want to say like a very bittersweet end for the human species to just come that far for I could feel for the librarian and the issues, like there's this whole internal struggle of just what was it all for in the end? Achieving that level of intelligence and grandeur, but then still becoming nothing. Because to be that smart, but then to exist part of the phalanx,
Yeah.
that just makes you a drop in a greater bucket. Actually, now that I think of it, that the timeline we were talking about, the Apocalypse one, that's actually the ninth timeline.
Ninth. Okay.
Yeah, 8 was the Magneto one, I think. I believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. 8th was the Magneto one. So that means that. Oh, okay. So that creates an interesting picture when you think about it. So that means she left this timeline with that mindset, and then she still went on to like back Magneto in the weakest way possible.
Right?
She did 1,000 years. Like, what a waste. Why? Uh, but you know what? I think that's the whole point of this timeline, was meant to be overblown and a big red herring, like something to kind of pull you down a different road. I've been
Gotcha.
subverted. I'm so subverted with everything now. My expectations are non-existent. At this point, I've been disarmed by Hickman. I'm just like, okay. Now we have the
Who
main
does that?
timeline.
Yeah.
We've gone full circle. Now it brings us to where we're at the main, like, actual point in the story where it started with the
Yep.
original powers.
Yep.
Or I guess the house as well.
Yep. And we cut back to Charles reading Moira's mind, or finishing reading Moira's mind. Then he has a moment with his brain. Charles, my brain. Charles, my brain. We know. We know the spiel. We know how it works. But he sees it all, and he's just like, we lose, question mark. And she
Well,
tells him, like,
yes.
no, we don't lose, we always lose, like every time. Like, I've tried this, we lose. And Charles is like, what if we try harder with humility and kindness? And she's all like, bitch, nah, and just makes out with him.
Shut up and kiss me, you damn fool.
Shut up and kiss me, you idealist son of a bitch.
Such a god complex. I'll genocide you one of these days, Charles. Just you wait. Just you. The removal of all Charles from all timelines. Oh man, the Council of Charles. The difference in like each other timeline, that he's the same no matter what. It's just some of them can walk and some of them can't.
Yes.
Oh jeez. Oh man.
And she specifically is like, you looked at me, we loved each other at once. I loved you, I hated you, so many emotions, and you've never changed. And Charles goes, thank you. And she goes, that's not a compliment, bitch. You need to change up your game right now.
She says, I'm going to show you how it's done. No.
I'm going to show you how it's done.
And we're going to do this badass sunset silhouette walk-off screen or shot. You do the classic one from the movie.
Yes. Take my hand, we walk off towards the sun, into the distance. Off into the distance we go. And so yeah, they join forces. Charles now knows the lives of Moira. And she says, you've been dreaming the wrong dreams, Charles, and it's long past time that you wake up. And boy, does she wake him up.
Yeah. You know what? I know a good way to make money. I could start peddling drugs. Good job, Moira.
Good job.
And create an ethno state and start peddling drugs to fuel it. Oh man, it's South America all over again.
Right.
Oh jeez.
So then we cut to Moira's journals, and what did you get out of the Moira's journals besides like Charles was hard to break at first. She was running into all the problems that she experienced almost throughout the lives a little bit. But
This felt like a nod almost to like Destiny's Diaries, like how they had
yeah,
like the older entries and that. This kind of felt like kind of a throwback to that. But all right, can we at least call out the fact that this like whole redaction stuff is still getting
yeah,
out?
still here.
It's
Entry
even
12 is
not
redacted. Not
entirely the
even,
whole
yeah,
thing.
the whole thing. Like, why even show it? Just don't show it. Why is that hard?
What is this mystery that they're trying to build in something that's already filled with mystery? Like, I mean, just telling me this stuff on entry 5 and 14 makes me curious enough about what would be in the other entries. I'm
Yeah.
not any more curious about entry 12 than I am about entry fucking 11 because I don't know what either of them are. The one I know how long it will be based off of roughly the size of the redacted area, but that's it.
Yeah. Just don't tell me.
Yeah. But some of these are actually kind of interesting. Like Myra gets a little deep into some of these people.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, it's some crazy stuff. She breaks down Xavier pretty hardcore.
Yeah, she does. And it's interesting. It's interesting to watch her take this approach. She she knows what she's doing. She's in control, it seems. Uh it doesn't seem like Charles is in control in many ways.
She's playing him, but at some point you get the hint that there's things that she's doing that she's not 100% on board with. Like, notice this stuff with Sinister that she references. So that kind of points to me to her having some things that Charles and her don't line up on,
Hmm.
and that he's kind of playing free with it. I believe yeah, entry 48. If you cut to entry 48, just jump ahead real quick. There's the reference about Sinister in there, and
Yes.
that's the whole thing where I'm like, okay, well, she's got Charles pretty much under control in some ways, and it seems pretty clear that she has like a love-hate relationship with Charles.
Yeah.
She loves him and hates him all in
Hates
one.
him. It's like, this guy, this
Yeah,
asshole. Oh, he's so good. Oh, fuck this dude.
but I admire him in so many ways. But I hate him. But I love. I can't stand him. All I want to be with. So, yeah, it seems like they have some interesting, I guess you could say, codependency going on here.
A little bit. A
A
little
little
bit.
bit, some toxic stuff. Watch out. But yeah, her takes on Magneto are funny. She's very dickish about it. And I noticed in the entry about Xavier, 17, there's the note about how their genetic modification could find potential matches for her and both Charles to produce such a mutant, and it's in reference to about how like they can make mutants that could push the walls of reality using their genetic material. And I feel like that's a good nod to like Proteus and Legion,
Hmm.
like Kevin and David.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. So I'm like, okay, so that means like Legion and Proteus exist all because Moira and Xavier were having fun with their DNA in ways I may not want to know.
Juicy stuff. Yeah. All right. And now we cut to yesterday, Krakoa. Back to Moira's no space. And we see Moira, Xavier, Charles back at it again. And they're talking about tea and the Quiet Council.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice little celebratory thing where they're patting each other on the back where they're like, okay, well, all that stuff that we learned back in the past when we all got brought up to date by meeting Moira and doing the mind like read, this is the fruition of that story. So where we started back at that festival with Charles and Moira, we're now here to like here's the present day of like everything that they've been working on playing out, and that's why they're like kind of celebrating because this is them kicking off Krakoa proper.
This is real Krakoa proper celebration right here between these three.
Intertwining it now with House at this point. Because it brings it right up to house.
It brings it right up to house. So she's just talking about the different people that are brought on board on the council so far. Kind of going over that as Xavier pours out that drink, and Magneto makes cups out of balls he had in his pocket.
Yeah, like the ones like do you remember in the second X-Men movie,
Yeah,
X2, that when he was like escaping from jail using the iron that he pulled out of that dude's blood,
yeah,
and he made those 3 little floating balls, and then he'd like shape them into like weapons, or he would float on one of them and like make things out of them. That, oh man, it's just funny. Magneto will just take spherical little objects of metal, and he'll just like, and then I turn it into whatever I want to destroy everything here.
Mhm.
But damn these cuffs these cops put on me.
Can't handle them. Wood. Curse you, Wood.
This cage is unbreakable.
So as they're talking about the Quiet Council, still, she brings up Mystique and how they got Mystique on board, and she says that in order to get Mystique on board, we promised to bring back Destiny. And Moira's just like, you cannot do this. Charles knows this, but this is where we find out that no prequels could be on Krakoa.
Yeah.
Any mutants that could see the future will not be tolerated on Krakoa.
It's a permanent ban. There's a lot of stipulations to this ethno state.
Yes. And they understand, because if a precog or anyone like that could sense Moira, then they could know the plan.
Yeah, they're trying to keep Moira and her existence really on the down low, because even with the Quiet Council, it doesn't seem like she's mentioned or even everyone knows about her.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense, because why would you want people like Sinister to know? Or, I mean, I guess Apocalypse would be fine, but still, even then, that could be problematic. Yeah. But I get what they're saying here, and how that they should keep Sinister close better than far, because he's kind of unpredictable, and he would be one that could cause trouble in this. They do really need him. Like, his research in genetics is paramount. I mean, there aren't very many people that rival him when it comes to, or that can like reach his level when it comes to genetic research in mutants. So it's ideal to have them here. But the whole Mystique thing and bringing back Destiny was kind of funny, because it was just like, no, we're not going to do it Mystique once. We'll give her space on the council, but it's just like formal, and she's really just useless. It's like I was saying, it's all kind of comical. Just like when she got sucked out into space in that one mission, it really didn't do much. Poor Mystique. They just don't use her well enough, I guess. Maybe she'll have her moment to shine later on, but having her in the council in general is just kind of funny. But we'll see where he takes it.
We'll
I
see.
can see Moira's stance on all this, though. It's funny, because she's just like, I don't know about some of this. Some of this sounds a little wonky, but don't fuck it up. I'm gonna go back to my pod now, but don't fuck it up.
Yes. So, where do we leave off? I forget. Okay. So Moira reminds them that they always lose, and she says, "You know what the difference is, more or less, or what makes you different is that it was about them working together." So it's kind of like what she said.
Yeah, the thing I brought up about, like, the only thing that makes this timeline truly different than the fifth timeline is that it's Charles and Magneto working together. Like, they're not competing or spreading the mutant ideal thin or watering any concepts down. They're uniting under one concept and making it an unwavering force, and that's what gives them more strength to hold, gives them a stronger foundation. And I feel like, even just looking at the way it's illustrated right there, like, look how they stand toe and toe like titans next to each other,
Yeah,
ready to hold up all of mutantdom on their shoulders.
all
It's
of
really
it.
great, and they convey it well in the dialogue as well.
Yes, and they talk, and then Charles goes into a diatribe, if you will, as he leaves the room. And we're met back to that scene at the end of House of X where everyone is celebrating. And Charles goes on Still praising Moira. You shaped us. You made us into this thing. We are now these awesome tools, these amazing tools. We've finally came together because of you, Moira. And now it is time for you to step aside and let us do the work in which you created. Let us fuck it all up, probably.
We'll put you back in your pod, and we will get started on
Yes.
doing some crazy shit with Sinister.
I'm hoping like now that we're at the end of like House of X, Powers of X, and we can start speculating on future parts of this series a little bit more. I'm hoping like maybe like final issue of Hickman's run of this is just a like, fuck it, let's kill her, and she had an extra life or something.
Yeah.
And they just started over and like, all right, Hickman, what are you doing here?
He's just like, I can push this button forever. They can never take X-Men away from me. I'll never let it end.
Don't you know I'm head of X?
Well, think about it with and this is an interesting thing because it all transitioned back into House of X pretty well. It came full circle. They connected, had a nice symbiotic ending, and they kind of expanded on what Charles said at the very end of the previous House of X with a little more from like Magneto and them saying like they're gonna take the reins now, but at this moment, let's smile because we did something pretty cool. And you get that cool silhouette shot of like all of them standing by like the bonfire, like cutting back to the what I've dubbed the Return of the Jedi. Yeah, and they're doing that, and it's like they're basking in their accomplishment, and then they close out on that, and they don't really give you any more like crazy infographs or anything. Like this is just the boom. It's like this is the end, the punctuation to Hickman's overall story. And it leaves you wanting to see how this is going to play out now, because now the status quo has been changed for the Marvel universe. Like this status quo affects the greater Marvel status quo, and that's going to play out in a way that is going to be interesting. I haven't even touched any of that. I've only been reading the X-Men stuff so far. They come out with something different each week, but I imagine there's a lot of other like one-shots and tie-ins that I could probably dabble into that will deal with this enough where I'll feel fulfilled and not too much like, oh, because I don't know I don't know about reading some things just to find out where this is going with the greater connection to Hickman's storyline. I mean, I'll read almost anything, but I don't know. They could take this a scary way.
They could.
But yeah, let's break down some of the interesting things that we felt about this like whole run in series, because the first thing that stands out to me that I feel like is almost woefully out of picture is the lack of Franklin Richards, because he was touched on in the beginning.
Yep.
As one of the Omega Mutants. He did not come up after that at all.
Nothing.
In House of X.
Nothing at all.
Or Powers of X, any of them.
Yeah.
Even in the alternate timelines, the Moira timeline. Look at the timelines with Moira at the end, like the Apocalypse one, the 1,000-year one, the year 6. Like none of those like had Franklin in it. Like noticeably, none of the Fantastic Four either. So that's interesting, and I wonder why that is.
Yeah, what was he doing during all that time? Was he just hanging out with Galactus, like off out in the universe somewhere?
You see, Moira's dealing with her own multiversal issues. Franklin's over in his bedroom, and he's like running the Heroes Reborn universe under his covers, and he's playing with that. So he's got no time for this. He's like, I make pocket universes in my nap time, and I don't even have to die.
Yeah.
What do you do, Moira? But he was an interesting one missing. And then the revelation that Moira had on Sinister, where she says that she suspects that he is the first Chimera, and that is why he's a mutant, because he is a Chimera.
That would make sense.
What is he a Chimera of? Like, what mutants? Did he finally do it? Did he finally combine Scott Summers and Jean Grey to make himself into the ultimate mutant?
Is that his goal the whole time?
He puts on. I want to see him like throw away his like really gaudy clothes, and underneath he's wearing like Cable's like classic '90s like Rob Liefeld style like cable gear with the shoulder pad. He's like, I am Nathaniel Summers.
He's doing it. Got pouches and small feet.
Kick you in the face, Wolverine, with my tiny feet. What are you gonna do about
Oh my god, I'm getting pounded. They're so insignificant and slightly damaging.
it? Yeah. Oh yeah, they put so much like chaos and ambiguity in what Mr. Sinister is and what he's doing that it has got more questions than anything else. So that's my biggest takeaway from all of this is like, what is Sinister doing? Because as we've gotten to read more of the individual issues of like X-Men series and like Excalibur and Marauders and all them, like I've gotten to see that Apocalypse, his persona and the way he's being portrayed is a lot more on the less dubious side and more on, it seems like, a positive and like impactful side, as like him being a beacon of hope in the mutant hierarchy. Like the people kind of have this weird, I wouldn't say worship, but idolization. Like he's like an idol amongst the mutants.
He's definitely seen as is like almost on the same level as like Charles or Magneto. He's definitely seen as a mentor for sure to some people.
Yeah.
Seem to go to him for
Or a beacon of
questions.
strength, you know, like
Yeah,
mutant hope, like embodied in like this grand vastage. But yeah, they're portraying him in a much more protagonist way and less of an antagonist way, and that I've liked. I have loved all of that. So that's the cool thing going from here. But they haven't touched too much on Sinister yet, and that's still super up in the air. Like I said, all this stuff was going to get thrown up in the air, and it was going to stay up there. I mean, like I said, also with the Apocalypse just now, like some of that stuff starts to get grounded, but everything else, like the Sinister stuff, is still way up there. What's Charles really trying to do in the end of this is still up there, and is Moira going to try and 86 all of it? That's still up there too.
right.
They haven't even brought her back. Like this is all you'll see of Moira for a while, I believe, right? Because they don't reference her again.
They
Or
don't
bring her
reference
out.
her ever again, so far at least.
Yeah, because she's under the impression that she was killed. Because they touch on the fact that they created a husk using Shi'ar technology and made a life dummy, like a life model decoy of her that was killed off. So that's the Moira that died in, I believe, Mutant Massacre's timeline, where she got the legacy virus or whatever that arc was that the legacy virus was that came out in that killed her.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that they touched on that and said like, oh, that was a dummy. So like a lot of the weird plot holes that Hickman's arc created that I was like, okay, this is strange in the beginning, but the end, all of those got kind of paid off at least in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe as a nod, but still just enough, you know.
It's good. Yeah, it did the trick.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, so this has been quite a run so far. You excited for what's to come?
This was really compacted, but it felt as big as like, you know, like a Civil War type event. Like you remember going back to that kind of fervor when you know, that was at the time like things like Civil War and even the stuff after that, or even like House of X or House of M, I mean, going way back. Like those felt like events, like big game changing events. And they were, because, you know, Joe Quesada was at the helm and he liked to really shake things up, but in a fun way. And he had a good connection with people like Stanley and the rest of the writers to make it work. But those felt like real events. Like this felt like a real event, but it wasn't. This was like not even like a summertime event. I mean, it kind of was in a way, but it wasn't like, oh, this is the big one, because you still had like the Thor Ragnarok event going on or whatever that was. There's something like related to the Asgardian war event going on this summer that kind of happened. But I mean, this could have easily overshadowed it and been all on its own and been fine, because it had that feel, like that throwback to the older events. I mean, now with your events there every 2 weeks, you're just like, oh, there's another fucking game-changing event coming out. We're resetting the comics to issue 1. Captain America is dead. Captain America is a zombie. Captain America is a Nazi zombie. This is the new arc coming to a local comic book store near you. Come check it out, Marvel. We got you covered for the quarter. Event Q4. Oh man, it used to be you could connect years by events. Like every year, you'd be like,
Oh, yeah.
this event happened, and then this event happened next year, and you could like put those books together, and they would feel comfortable in an arc. Now it's like so many game-changing events happen that the story is a mess.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, you can never connect it. And that, the whole point of comics is to connect it. And this all fits together. Powers of X and House of X were the best like duo series that I had seen in a long time. Like written in tandem. Like it was perfect.
Definitely been my favorite since Avengers New Avengers.
Oh yeah, yeah, those feed into each other really well too. Good point. I forget about that. Yeah. But that makes sense because that you're talking about Hickman as well. So.
Yep, that's another Hickman.
He knows how to coalesce his universe. See what like this is what happens when you let Hickman do his thing. When Marvel Editorial gets all up in it, then you get Secret Wars, and it just goes to shit. Just goes to shit.
Yeah, get out of there, Marvel Editorial. I want gold balls. And he delivered. He delivered.
He so did. Made gold balls relevant, and also made him like a famous icon in the mutant universe. He will go down in mutantdom as a savior to mutant as a messiah.
Right.
Praise be to the gold balls.
Praise be to gold balls. But yes, that concludes Powers of X issue number 6, and it concludes the series House of X and Powers of X.
And the story arc. Yeah, it's all wrapped up.
This lays down the foundation of Dawn of X, though. Are you excited for Dawn of X? That's going to be our next territory. Yeah, it's going to be great. So we're starting off with X-Men issue number 1, Marauders, Excalibur, X-Force, New Mutants, and Fallen Angels, all coming out. Usually, so everything's about on a monthly. It's like a month and a week schedule. It's really weird.
Yeah. It's not in like a normal cadence at all.
Yeah. So plenty of time to go over all of these. We're only about a month behind. I think we could catch up easily within the next week or two.
Yeah, definitely. We could start putting in some of the newer ones. They flow. They're a lot less compacted with data and information that you have to break down, and much more just traditional freeform comics that are just kind of loose leaf and quick to the point.
Yeah, easy storytelling.
You got to deep dive on Hickman each time. If you're not, you're missing everything.
You really do. You really do. But yeah, we'll get this started next week with X-Men issue number 1, and then this issue we're gonna meet the Summers family. We're gonna see what they've been up to for a little bit. We're gonna go visit the dark side of the moon.
Get ready for a sharp left turn, folks, because we're gonna go into a bizarre world.
It's gonna be a little weird. It's gonna be a weird start for sure. You're gonna think that you're gonna get the ground running, and you gotta wait for that escalator.
Yeah, there's a little skip at the beginning, and we're gonna find yourself in a territory where you're having a family reunion that may be one of the most awkward, but we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, so while I was in New York last week, I ended up buying X-Men issue number 2 just because why not? I visited a comic book shop. I don't know if it's a tax thing or something, but it is $1 cheaper.
Really?
Just throwing that out there.
Getting it at the comic book store is $1 cheaper. Oh, $1 cheaper just in New York in general?
In general, like it's printed on the book, $1 cheaper.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there has to be because everything else is super expensive in New York. So
you gotta pay for that rent, man.
They want people to buy comics still, so they figure you just spent $4,000, might as well have $1 off on this comic.
This comic, enjoy it. Enjoy your sad apartment home, your tiny apartment home for $4,000 a month.
Your leaky claustrophobic apartment homes that are entrenched with many, many, many homeless that are layering the outside of the apartment home. It's hard to tell when the brick ends and they begin. Welcome to New York.
Welcome to New York.
New York.
All right, folks. That is going to do it for this week. We finished, guys. Everyone.
What a run. What
we
a
did
run.
It. Yes. Wow. I'm excited. Stay tuned for next week. We're starting Dawn of X with X-Men issue number 1. But until then, remember, the robots are going to kill us all. And have a good time. Have a good time at the death? I don't know.
It's a philosophical stance. We're going to die anyways. Everyone just live it up.
Just live it up.
Party like you're on Krakoa, and it's 2019.
Yeah. Woo! All right.
Party like it's Moira Life 8.
Party like it's more than Life 8. Don't go too far. Don't go to Life 9, though. If you got to Life 9, you went too far.
Yeah.
All
Oh, man.
right.
Good time.
Catch you later. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, we are going back through our classic episodes and uploading them onto YouTube in what we are calling Podcast of X Classics. So be sure to be on the lookout for more classic episodes. And be sure to check out freespeechgeek.com.